What's up guys, welcome back to the TB Electric channel. Today we're doing a how-to video for your e-motos. Specifically, we have an E-Ride Pro SS 3.0 right here, and we're gonna show you guys how to change out your sprocket, change out your rotor, take off your rear wheel, show you guys how to take off your chain if you need to, and how to grease it all up. This tutorial will work for any of the Talaria models, the Surron models, the E-Ride Pro models, the Talaria XXX. Most e-motos are going to be a very, very similar process to this. Let's get into it. We're not going to waste any time here. So first off, if your chain is tensioned properly, we're going to want to just take our quick link off, get it out of the way, because it's going to make the rest of our process significantly easier. So what you want to do is find your quick link. So what I have noticed on these E-Ride 3.0 and SR specifically is the quick link was on the back side, so it was really hard to find. But I know I got mine on the front right here. So here's our quick link. I like to use these adjustable pliers in the wide setting, and you can just pop your quick link off just like so. Here we go. Sometimes you have to kind of work it off right there. Sometimes some needle nose help to get you the rest of the way. There we go. So we got our C-clip, and now we'll pull off our cap off like that, and then we can just push it out, and then we'll just ditch our chain, leave it hanging right there. Now we need our 17 mil socket, and usually a 6 mil Allen that you put on the back side over here. Pop that in to keep it from spinning. We're just gonna loosen this up. And because we're pulling our wheel all the way out, pull our nut off, and then you can push your axle out. There is a spacer on the E-Ride Pros that goes right here inside of your axle block, so make sure to save that. Not all bikes have this, so if you don't have it, don't worry, it's totally fine. We're gonna pull our axle all the way out, and you'll see that this piece is kind of just floating. So you can take it, set it aside so it doesn't just fall on the floor. We'll keep pulling this out. We have the same piece on the opposite end and our axle. Now, we have a couple of things. We have to pull our brake out of this. Oftentimes, you have to slide it backwards because your brake, come look at this, Romney. See this slit right here slides onto this post. So, you have to slide it back and off, and then you can unhook this from the middle right here, and it will come off of your axle. See how this bad boy indents into this, and that's what kind of holds it on, and then it slides onto there. So we can go ahead and put this back. It'll sit right on that post. Now we have our wheel off. So let's show you guys how to swap our sprocket, our rotor, and re-grease our wheel if we need to. So we're gonna go ahead and just take off our sprocket here. This is a good process if you haven't done it on your bike, even just to Loctite these bolts. So you don't necessarily have to be swapping out your sprocket to take it off. Sometimes it's good because these bolts do come loose sometimes. We're gonna go ahead and pull them all the way out. We did have some Loctite already on there because this is an upgraded sprocket already on this wheel. Pull all those off. All right, our last bolt is out. You can take your sprocket off. I'm just gonna leave this on. I'm not actually gonna be changing it in this video. But we're gonna throw a little bit more blue Loctite on our bolts. You don't wanna drown these because you don't wanna make it too difficult to remove, and you don't wanna use red Loctite. You wanna use blue, which is not a permanent Loctite. So I'm not doing a ton. Just got it wrapped around. These sprocket bolts, they can be a real pain sometimes. I've broken the heads off, and I've had to like literally throw away a wheel because I couldn't get the bolt out. So don't put too much, it's just not worth it. Now for this, we're gonna tighten them all so that they're not tight yet, they're just right there at the cusp of getting real tight. And then we're gonna go crisscross pattern to make sure they all tighten evenly. Okay, so they're all just barely on there. And now we're gonna go back and forth. So we're gonna go nice and tight, go crisscross, nice and tight, up to the top, down the bottom, and over to the side. And now we're good to go. Tighten nice and evenly. Now let's grease up our hub on this side. You can just take and pull this spacer right out. We're gonna put some grease right in our hub there. Grease that up. You don't need too much in there. Put this cap back in. I like to just take one out at a time because each side is different. You'll see this side and this side. Pull this one out. They're different. So I like to just do one at a time so I always know which one goes on which side, so I'm not mixing them up. Switch it over, we'll pull this one out. Typically, the rotor side is the much smaller spacer. Put that back in, it sticks out very little. Now we have our rotor. These are the same, similar process. When you remove it, you want to tighten it in the same way like a sprocket. You go back and forth, make sure it's all snug. This is another great item to remove the bolts, put Loctite back on. These are often a T30 tool, so they're not an Allen wrench most of the time. Torx T30, that's gonna pop in there and loosen it. Usually your front rotor is a Torx T25, which is smaller. I'm gonna quickly remove these, throw some Loctite on them so my bike will last longer and my bolts aren't gonna fall out, and we'll come back and show you guys how to put your wheel back in. Here we go. So we got our wheel. We're gonna go ahead and take our brake bracket off just like we did the opposite order. We're gonna slide it on to our rotor and make sure this pops in. See that? It's nice and sitting there. And then we're gonna go down and we're gonna slide this groove onto that post. There we are. So now we're literally like perfectly lined up. We can take our axle, which has this wide end because that lines up with this. We're gonna go ahead and put that in. Put that right there. And then on the other side, right here, I like to do a different process of steps. Normally you would just put this guy on, and that is holding the axle in the right spot for your proper chain tension. However, I'm gonna pull this off so that we can pivot this a little bit further. And sometimes I like to push the axle back through a little so that we can also get it to slide a little bit more like that. See that? Now we'll put our chain back on. Because if your chain is really tight, putting it back on when your wheel is tight is really difficult. So now we have a little bit more room because our axle is slid up, and now you'll see that we have plenty of room to just slide our chain back in. We'll put our quick link and cap back on, which are where? Under my foot. Here we go. Put that back on. And I think the easiest way to put these C-clips back on is with the needle nose pliers. I like to grab the end and this post. Sometimes it takes a few tries. Pinch it on, just like that. And you're on and good. So now our chain is loose still. So now we're gonna push our axle back through. This is gonna be a little more snug to put on because our chain is now tight. You see, I wanna pull the wheel back, but then our chain gets tight. But this is a heck of a lot easier than trying to get our chain on when this is already all tight. So there we go. Put our spacer, because it's an E-ride, on. Put our axle nut back on. And we'll take our 6mm on the back side. And at this stage, I like to check the brake. Make sure it's still in its slot. Give a little wiggle. That play is normal until you tighten your axle, and you'll be good to go. So now we'll grab this, we'll tighten it. See, check our chain tension. Still perfect as it was before. Our brake is now tight. Spins freely. We are good to go. Now, if you guys want to know how to tighten your chain or cut your chain, we'll have different videos for that. If you guys found this video helpful, please hit that subscribe button to TB Electric. We've got tons of how-to videos for you. And if you want any upgraded parts, check out the link in the video description to our parts store, tbelectricmoto.com. We'll catch you next video. See ya.